$700 billion. That's what it could cost America to buy Greenland. $700 billion. To put that in perspective, that's more than half the annual Defense Department budget. That's roughly what the United States spent on the entire Apollo program, adjusted for inflation, for an island covered 80% in ice. But here's what President Trump said this week in Davos. The United States needs Greenland for the purpose of national security. Anything less is unacceptable. National security, not real estate, not resources, not ego, security. And if you think this is just Trump being Trump, you're missing what's actually happening in the Arctic right now, because 15 minutes, that's how long it takes for a Russian ICBM to reach New York from launch. 15 minutes between detection and impact. And the only thing standing between those missiles and American cities is a radar installation on a frozen island that belongs to Denmark. This isn't about buying Greenland. This is about who controls the top of the world. Let me show you what's really at stake here. Greenland sits right between North America and Europe. 850,000 square miles. The world's largest island. 56,000 people live there, most along the ice-free coastline, and it's been part of the Kingdom of Denmark since 1814. But in 1951, the United States and Denmark signed a treaty. That treaty gave America the right to maintain military bases in Greenland for NATO defense. Today, the U.S. operates Patuxent Space Base. You might know it as Thule Air Base. That base does three critical things for American security. First, early warning. It detects missile launches from Russia. Those 15 minutes I mentioned? That warning comes from Greenland. Second, space surveillance, tracking satellites, monitoring threats in orbit. Third, strategic positioning. It's the shortest route between the United States and Russia over the North Pole. Now here's where it gets complicated. Greenland wants independence from Denmark. They unveiled their first draft constitution in 2023. They held elections in March 2025. The center-right party won on a platform of gradual independence. Prime Minister Mette Baurup Egede has been very clear. We don't want to be Danish. We don't want to be American. We want to be Greenlandic. So you've got three players here. Denmark, which technically owns Greenland but respects its autonomy. Greenland, which wants full independence. And the United States, which needs that island for national defense. Trump sees an opportunity. Greenland wants independence. Independence costs money. America has money. Simple transaction, right? Not exactly. Because Trump didn't start with a polite offer. He started with threats. In December 2024, before even taking office, Trump said he wouldn't rule out using military force to take Greenland. Military force. Against a NATO ally. Then in January 2025, he announced 10% tariffs on 8 European nations: Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, Netherlands, Finland. The tariff was set to increase to 25% by June, unless Denmark agreed to sell Greenland. Let that sink in. The President of the United States threatened economic warfare against 8 NATO allies, over an island. The reaction was immediate. King Frederick X of Denmark gave a speech in January. We are all united and each of us committed for the Kingdom of Denmark, from the Danish minority in South Schleswig and all the way to Greenland. We belong together. Denmark changed their royal arms to include Greenland more prominently. The European Union held emergency meetings. Some members wanted diplomatic solutions. Others pushed for a bazooka package of retaliatory tariffs. NATO itself warned that a U.S. annexation of Greenland would effectively end the alliance. End NATO. Over Greenland. But here's where Trump's strategy gets interesting. He sent Donald Trump Jr. to Greenland in early January. Jr. didn't meet with government officials. He met with pro-American activists, people who want closer ties to the United States. The Trump administration started talking about the Golden Dome missile defense system, a multi-layered defense shield using space-based interceptors, designed to counter hypersonic threats from Russia and China, and they positioned Greenland as essential to that system. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told Congress in classified briefings, Trump wants to buy Greenland, not invade, not occupy, purchase. Then this week in Davos, everything shifted. Trump met with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. After that meeting, Trump announced he'd reached the framework of a future deal on Greenland. He withdrew the tariff threats. He took military force off the table. He said the deal would involve Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary Rubio, and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff leading negotiations. What changed? NATO offered an Arctic Sentry security partnership. Enhanced Arctic security, more NATO presence in the region, shared defense responsibilities. In other words, Trump got what he actually wanted without buying the island. Enhanced American security presence in Greenland, NATO commitment to Arctic defense, and Denmark footing part of the bill through increased defense spending. Denmark announced a double-digit billion amount in Danish krone for Greenland defense. That's between $876 million and $8.7 billion US dollars. So what does this mean? First, the Arctic is now a primary theater of great power competition. Russia has been rebuilding Soviet-era military bases along its Arctic coast. China has declared itself a near-Arctic nation, despite being nowhere near the Arctic. Beijing has invested heavily in icebreakers and Arctic research. Both Moscow and Beijing want access to new shipping routes as ice melts, and access to rare earth minerals buried under Greenland's ice sheet. Trump's Greenland push forced NATO to take Arctic security seriously. For years, Arctic defense was an afterthought. Not anymore. Second, this shows Trump's negotiation pattern. Start with a maximalist position. We're taking Greenland. Create a crisis. Threaten allies. Impose tariffs. Then settle for what you actually wanted all along. Enhanced security cooperation. It worked with Panama too. Trump threatened to seize the Panama Canal. Panama's Supreme Court just ruled that Chinese control of canal ports was unconstitutional. Now American companies are buying those port operations. Trump got Chinese influence reduced without firing a shot. Third, American polling shows this approach is unpopular. A Reuters poll found only 17% of Americans support acquiring Greenland. 47% oppose it. 35% are unsure. Even among Trump's base, threatening NATO allies over territory doesn't play well. But here's the question nobody's asking. What if Trump is right about the threat? China and Russia are increasing Arctic activity. Russia is testing hypersonic missiles that can evade traditional defenses. China is building dual-use research facilities that could serve military purposes. The Arctic ice cap is melting. New shipping routes are opening. Resources are becoming accessible. Whoever controls the Arctic approaches controls a massive strategic advantage. Is $700 billion too much? Alaska cost $7.2 million in 1867. That's about $150 million in today's money. Critics called it Seward's folly, a wasteland of ice and snow. Today, Alaska is priceless. Strategic position, oil reserves, military bases, early warning systems. Could Greenland be the next Alaska, or is this Trump forcing allies to spend more on defense while damaging American credibility? Here's what we know for certain. The United States military believes Greenland is critical to national defense. That's not Trump talking. That's the Pentagon, the Space Force, U.S. Northern Command. Greenland wants independence. That's going to happen eventually, with or without American involvement. And when Greenland becomes independent, someone is going to offer them a deal. Someone is going to invest in their infrastructure, build their ports, fund their government. The question is whether that someone is Washington, Beijing, or Moscow. Trump's approach was chaotic, threatening allies, breaking diplomatic norms, creating unnecessary crisis. But the underlying strategy might be sound. Get ahead of Greenland's independence. Establish security partnerships now. Lock in American presence before China or Russia can move in. $700 billion is the estimate if America were to buy sovereignty outright. But the framework deal announced in Davos? That costs a fraction. Enhanced defense cooperation, NATO Arctic Sentry program, shared infrastructure investment, and it achieves the same security objective without annexing a NATO ally's territory. So maybe Trump's chaos is strategy. Or maybe we're about to spend decades repairing relationships with allies over an island most Americans couldn't find on a map. The Arctic is heating up, both literally and strategically, and Greenland sits right in the middle of it all. The question isn't whether Greenland matters. The question is whether threatening allies is the right way to secure it. What do you think?